So with that said, that'll lead us to our final discussion of the day, which is the Uncharted games. So people ask me all the time to talk about video games, and I've got kids, and I'm doing this movie channel, so I don't have as much time to play video games. And, a video game, they're not 2 hours. They're like 15, 20, 30 hours. They're very long. And so that's really the reason that I don't do more game stuff. I just don't have enough time to play them. And then when I do play them, I want to play with my son a lot of the time. And so then he's playing, Lego Star Wars and Battlefront, and he's playing the same stuff over and over again. Mm-hmm. And then we were in quarantine, and Sony decided over the last year to give away the Uncharted games. So I've had them for a long time. And then I guess they made them free to everyone else last month as well. But so I had them sitting there, and then I was locked at home, and I was like, this is the time right now to finally make this happen. In the comments, people have been telling me, Sean, I'm pretty sure you would love the Uncharted games. This seems like it would be right up your alley, the type of story, the type of character, the movies you like. I mean, it's all that stuff. I just didn't have time. It just never happened. There's no reason. It's not like I dabbled, put my toe in the water of Uncharted. Was like, I don't like this. It was literally, I'd never played 1 second of Uncharted prior to being locked in my house, even though I owned all the games. And so then got locked down, and I just started the full binge through. Just like, let's make my way through these games. And that's kind of my experience with them. And as everybody said, it was right up my alley. It's the story, the gameplay, everything. Totally dug it right out of the gate. And so, I literally just kind of binged straight through 4 games, 60 hours of gameplay or something like that over the course of a month, which is something I just don't ever do things like that. But since I couldn't go anywhere, I guess it was okay to be able to do that. But anyway, with that said, I'm planning on doing my first ever video game ranking in the very near future. But to do that, I wanted to process it a little bit more with some people that have more slow cook played through the games over their release and everything. And a part of that was Cody saying that he wanted to talk Uncharted with me. Actually, I misinterpreted what he said when he first said it. So that's actually what led to this. I thought he was inviting himself onto my podcast. That's not what he was like. No, I was going to make a video on my channel. I was like, oh, well, I was fine with you coming on, so let's do it. And so, Cody, why don't you tell us your story with Uncharted real quick, your history with it, and then likewise, once he's done, Griffin, you can tell us your history with it, and let's start debating these ones. You guys can help me understand which one is the best, the worst, all that fun stuff. Cody, go.
Well, there's no such thing as a worst Uncharted game. It's just the least awesome. But yeah, you have PS3 whenever it came out. I got one the summer that I graduated from high school. And somewhere in that summer, I think I had there was a demo or something of Uncharted Drake's Fortune. And I was like, what is this? I'll check it out. And it was cool enough to where I went and bought the game. Instant fanatic. It was just Naughty Dog's a really cool, interesting studio from where they've come from with Crash Bandicoot, things like that. And now you're getting things like The Last of Us, which is some of the most emotionally gripping stuff you're going to play. And then Uncharted sandwiched somewhere in the middle where it's just this perfect summer blockbuster, Indiana Jones,
right,
Tomb Raider type deal, but done a lot better, in my opinion. Uncharted kind of, in a way, was inspired by Tomb Raider, and then Tomb Raider reinvented itself because of Uncharted. Yeah. But I love the first game. Instantly, you just fall in love with the characters. That's the biggest thing I think Uncharted has. It has great action. It has fun gameplay. It has some really huge set pieces, but it's the characters that draw you in. It's Nathan Drake. It's Sully. It's the interaction between them. It's the writing, the voices. Nolan North does the voice for Drake, and he kind of became the biggest video game voice actor for a long time because of the Uncharted series. It might still be, but it's a game series that if you like the type of genres that we do with these old school action films and adventure films and Indiana Jones, stuff like that, it's just handed to you on a platter. The games do nothing but get better for them, for the most part, all the way up to 4, where they get bigger in scale. They never really lose track of the heart of the games, which is the characters and the relationships between them. You kind of see relationships budding in certain games, and then you play the next game and you're kind of in the aftermath of where relationships have fallen through. And it's one of at least top 3, my favorite video game series of all time.
Griffin, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, similar to Cody, I started the Uncharted series in high school, but I actually started with Uncharted 2. I think a lot of people kind of missed on the first one and started with 2 and then went back and played the first one. But first of all, I was just like immediately floored by how cinematic it was just as a game. And you're right, like you do instantly fall in love with these characters. It's fun, it's swashbuckling, it's Indiana Jones. You go to like amazing locations. It's rooted in like real world mythology and whatnot. And I just remember the train sequence in Uncharted 2. Yeah. And it's just like it's some of the most memorable video game set pieces like you'll ever play through. And they're all done to perfection. Like each of the games has that one like set piece. Like 3 has the plane one, 2 has the train one, and then like 4 has an incredible like, it's like 3 stages. It's like this bell tower that goes into like a Jeep chase that goes into, it's unbelievable. And so, yeah. And the voice acting, of course, is incredible. Nolan North is amazing. And I like that he got to work with Troy Baker, I believe, in the 4th one, because Troy Baker
might as well be the second, or if not the biggest now too, because the Last of Us.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like super exciting that those 2 guys got to work together in a game. But yeah, I mean, like this, we have not gotten an Indiana Jones film since Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and this really fills that void while being different and its own thing. Like it's inspired by Indiana Jones, like a lot of adventure material, but it's like unabashedly its own. It's got an edge to it. The character is not as morally straight as Indiana Jones, and so that's always fun. And you're right, like it's so good. It was so good and so explosive right out the gate that Tomb Raider had to take a step back and be like, oh shit, how do we rework what we've
how do we
been
do
doing?
That?
Yeah, it's like, how do we make Lara Croft a real person and not this just like caricature of a whatever that goes through like dungeons and mazes and whatnot. But no slight against those early Tomb Raider games. They're fun in their own right, but this is just another level. So I'm massive Uncharted fan. Probably my second or third favorite video game franchise out there, but behind like Assassin's Creed and Mass Effect.
So as I'm trying to decide my ranking on this, how am I supposed to do this? As the guys that have had time to think about this, how do I decide?
Like I was telling you when we were chatting last week, these games are all so great and they're all so beloved that I really don't think there's any version of a ranking that's going to get controversial. Like everybody, it's razor thin difference between most of them. I could see why playing them for the first time, the gameplay certainly advances to where maybe playing the first one might be a little bit awkward, and then all of a sudden they've streamlined it by the second or third one. It's very difficult. Like even when I think about it now, when I think about which one is the best, and I have an idea of which one is the best because that's the one that I had the most fun playing, the one that I was addicted to, the one that just blew the doors open for me. But then I have the one that's right next to it where I'm like, oh man, but that one, you know what I mean? So it's I don't know. I'm very curious. Did you ever, I know you had a little bit of a hiccup with 2, where it deleted your save file or whatever. Yeah. Did you ever go back and actually finish it, or did you just watch the cutscenes on YouTube or something? Or what was your
I haven't been able to fix the problem yet, and I haven't gone back yet and played back through it. So depending on what the release date was for that ranking,
that scares me so much.
Potentially could I don't think I'll be able to play back through it in time. It's possible though.
Where did it cut off though?
80%.
But what place in the story?
Were you
big in shootout?
Were you in Tibet yet?
Yeah, I think so. I would
at least recommend trying. I know they do like.
So I made it through the train sequence. Next big it felt like we were ramping up. He had been betrayed by the girl. That didn't. Chloe. She. Yes. Yes. My daughter betrayed us, and that had happened. And so that was kind of the plot point, the last big plot point. But I was like in the middle of a shootout after that. and then
I remember that. Yeah.
just went toast.
Yeah.
I would at least try to find if you're not going to be able to play through it. Yeah, the cutscenes, or maybe watch a playthrough of it and kind of skip through some of the longer action sequences where you're just watching the guy play. Like, do something to at least finish the story.
Yes. I played.
That really blows.
It does, because the climax to 2 is like, it's wild, man. Yeah. It's like, I would hate to like have that spoiled, and I would hate to like not like have experienced that, so
yeah. Oh, exactly. How frustrating it was. It's like, okay, I just invested 15 hours into this, or whatever. How much?
We've all been there at least once. I still have scars from playing Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, which felt like the longest game on earth at the time. And my little brother came in and started the game and saved over where I was like 3/4 of the way through it, beat one mission, and then stopped playing it. Yeah. And I went to go play it, and I was like, why am I at the beginning again? And I was like, do it!
Yeah.
And that's how I went from 4 siblings down to 3. No, just kidding.
Hey, understandable. So
as long as we're talking about Uncharted, now I can join in on the discussion about the casting that we currently have for the movie. And the casting we currently have, Tom Holland as Nathan Drake and Mark Wahlberg as our mentor fellow. Have they cast the ladies? Just the two? Who's the current director on this one?
Ruben Fleischer.
Ruben Fleischer? Okay, that's what I was thinking. So when I heard all this, it seemed weird because I'd only seen the box art, and I was like, that seems odd. And then you play the game and you immediately go, this is bizarre. Like, this just feels like studio exec person be like, all right, he's got Spider-Man, but we want a second franchise for him. So a combined big up-and-comer with this franchise, like, he's real active. Like, we can see, like, he's very a physical guy that can do flips and stuff. This seems perfect. What? But have you ever? This doesn't match where the character starts at the beginning of the game. This doesn't make any sense in light of the actual character and who he is. Why would you? And it's not anti-Tom Holland at all. It's also, I mean, like, hey, if we're doing this movie 15 years from now, maybe Tom Holland's a really good pick for it. But like he's like 25, 26, but he has a high schooler vibe to him still.
Yeah.
Largely because he plays Peter Parker, but he's baby-faced and youthful by nature. And it's just not a good fit at all. And there's even that side to it. You go, Mark Wahlberg doesn't seem like the worst pick besides his accent.
At one point, he was supposed to play it. At one point, he was supposed to play Nathan Drake, and the director of Silver Linings Playbook was going to be the director of the movie. And then it went from there. And this was right around the time that Limitless came out with Bradley Cooper. That director was kind of being plugged for it. And then I loved Limitless, and I saw that he was going to get tagged for it. I was like, ooh, Bradley Cooper, if he pulled in, that would actually really work.
Yeah,
I did a rant video on this whole thing like 2 years ago when they first announced it, and my thoughts have not changed on it. Like, I love Tom Holland, and I've grown more fond of him since that video. But yeah, like you said, he just doesn't fit. And they're doing the same thing that drives me nuts about these video game adaptations. Because, I mean, I think we can all agree as movie fans that the vast majority of them, if not all of them, fail. And they keep repeating the same mistakes over and over. They're not respecting the games. Like, they keep trying to do something different. We're going to tell a prequel story, or you get Resident Evil, and it's like, well, we're going to have pieces of it in there, but we're going to just do our own thing. And that just doesn't. I understand the idea of, I don't want to directly copy the story note for note, because all the video game fans, which are a lot of us, are going to know everything that happens. You can tweak it here and there, but if it's not Uncharted, you're losing your core audience. And I don't understand. It's just like with that Die Hard prequel that they were talking about. You can't have big, huge adventures that take away from how big his first adventure was in Drake's Fortune. There's a reason why that was his first big adventure. If he's done all these wild ass adventures before this, then it just waters down the Nakatomi Tower. You know what I mean? So it's no, I'm still not on board for it.
Griffin, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, like, I've kind of been in the same boat as Cody ever since they announced it. I don't understand where the casting of Tom Holland came from, but then you look and you see, oh, it's Sony. And unfortunately, no other studio can make this movie because Sony owns Uncharted, which is just really depressing. Because this should be the next Indiana Jones. It like should be the next generation's great adventure franchise. Listen, it could very well be that it's just all the stars aren't aligning for that to be the case, and it's like. You get someone like Tom Holland as Nathan Drake, even after playing Uncharted 4 and understanding that he had some adventures as a kid, it still doesn't really work for me. Mark Wahlberg as Sully is bizarre casting.
Yeah.
It's like, are we sure that we weren't casting Mark Wahlberg as Nathan Drake? Like you guys have said, it's just totally weird. Ruben Fleischer is basically Sony's Ron Howard, and even that is an insult to Ron Howard. So... what are we doing here? It feels like they're going to have to make this movie, make a big mistake in order to start over again and give us the Uncharted film that we want, which is just really upsetting because it should never get to that point to begin with.
If any game franchise should be taken seriously and get the TLC it deserves, it's this one. So it's depressing to hear all these like typical studio mistakes. Like I think even before the COVID-19 thing, they were going to start shooting without a finished script.
Yeah.
They were going to be doing that. They were just going to film action scenes and figure out the story as we went along. Like that's red flag number one. And it's so it frustrates the living hell out of me. I know that Sony at one point was trying to make their own like video game studio that would make video game adaptations because they had The Last of Us as well. That's gonna luckily got pushed to a limited series, I think on HBO or something like that. So that's what that type of game needs. Uncharted needs to be on the big screen. I just don't get it. It's a no-brainer at this point. They even had a fan film that came out with Nathan Fillion, and that was a big big
Stephen Lang. I mean, it
was amazing.
You just look at it and you go,
perfect.
Here you go.
Yeah. It's perfect. Like from the camera angles, like whenever they do the thing where it's a cinematic and then all of a sudden like the bars go away and it opens up to gameplay and he starts moving, like it's right out of the game and you're like, some dude made this. Come on.
Yeah. It's baffling. It just shows that like studio, like they just don't know what they're doing. They're just looking at numbers and they're looking at the fact that, if we cast Tom Holland in the lead role, it'll get a bunch of people who wouldn't go see this movie in the theater, which is stupid. I don't know. Again, Avi Arad is probably behind this in some capacity. My conspiracy theory for all of this. So
Sony Pictures universe of video game characters.
Yeah, that's coming up soon. Savokabum, whatever the hell it is. I don't know, guys. It's just getting really frustrating. And the thing is, like, you talk to people who have been involved in video game movies, or you talk to people who are big fans of video games. They say the number one thing is that they don't get to the core of what that game is. They kind of strip it of the identity and they either try and cram too many things into one movie, or they just completely scrap whatever the original idea was and just make something using the name as brand recognition. And they just have to scale. They have to simplify it, get to the core of what it is, and just make a good movie. That's ultimately what it comes down to. And none of this is pointing towards that. And it's just, especially with Uncharted, where it's literally gift wrapped to you. How are we here?
Yeah.
And that's the one, playing through the games, where I'd been aware of kind of the development of the film and that there are all these versions that kept falling through and cycling through directors. And then I played through the first game and I went, I mean, that feels like they got a movie right there. And then played the second game. I was like, okay, now you have two different movies you could just run, or scripts you could run with. Like, this is the equivalent of having a book to translate, because trying to translate Super Mario into a movie, Sonic the Hedgehog into a movie, that's you have to come up with the story there. You have to like adapt it in major ways. There's a lot of full-blown creation where you take a book, you just have to translate it. With Uncharted, you're just translating. Like, you have the characters, you have subplots, you have character development. It's all actually there. And for some reason, they just can't put it together. And those are the ones that's frustrating, when they can't convert the easy stuff.
This is how easy it is. You could do the lazy cop out and just do a shot for shot film adaptation of the video game, and it would be a massive blockbuster. Mm-hmm. That's how gift wrapped it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Okay. Well, clicked on the wrong.
Death Jar Jar.
Death Jar Jar. Red Panda with a good one to close out our discussion of this. So if you don't want Tom Holland to be cast, and none of us do, that is no hate at Tom Holland. No. And I actually am pretty excited to see Tom Holland do stuff outside of Peter Parker. Very excited to see that. Yeah. And just how good he can be doing stuff. So no hate to him. He's just not the right fit for this specific character at this phase in his life. Then who would you pick? I think Nathan Drake, there's a lot of people that you could be really comfortable with it. The age range, I think, is like 30 to 45. Mm-hmm. And there's any number of actors that I think fall into that we've already kind of mentioned some of them, like Bradley Cooper, Nathan Fillion is a little bit on the older side to it. But you've seen him and you go, that could work right there. Some of the obvious ones that comes up for roles like this, Chris Pratt, Oscar Isaac, if you want to get a little bit outside the box, that like just
Oscar Isaac is my pick, man. That dude, like, just look at the images of him in The Rise of Skywalker, and you're just like,
right there. You just like
there he is.
The poster for the third one. I think there's a number of these guys that. That's also what makes it so frustrating, that it feels like there's so many obvious people that you would go perfect, like multiple people that are perfect to do it. And it's not like with Indiana Jones where you're like, we're going to compare it here. No, you can just pick any one of these charismatic people that's 30 to 45 years old. There's a ton of them. A lot of them are named Chris, but instead we go with the guy that's 25, looks 18.
Yeah.
And that's the frustrating part to it. But so it's not that I don't have any one person, but there's a bunch of those names that if they said it, I'd be totally cool with it happening.